Janet came home from work, and I was reading a book in my recliner in the living room. Taking a deep breath, she dropped her luggage at the door and walked in. She handled herself differently, and there was a noticeable difference. Concentrated, determined. I looked up. "Hey, how was your job?" She took a while to respond. She was standing there, twirling her wedding ring between her fingers. Rather than sitting beside me as she usually did, she sighed and sat down at last. She answered, "It was fine," but there was a hint of unresolvedness in her voice. I put my book down. "What are you thinking about?" She let out a breath and looked at me. "I need to discuss something with you." It was never a good approach to strike up a discussion. I took a seat. "All right," as if to brace herself. She inhaled deeply once more. "My perspective has changed ever since I was diagnosed with cancer," she said. "Time is not something I want to waste anymore. I aspire to fully embrace life. I should take advantage of every opportunity life presents while I still have it." Slowly, I nodded. This I knew. It was the reason she was attempting to make every moment matter. Why we had taken vacations. And why she had picked up new interests. I answered, "I understand that, and I'm in favor of it. You are aware of that." She gave a fleeting smile before saying something that completely altered the situation. "Give me a hall pass. Please." At first, the words didn't register. What? A one-time chance to spend time with someone else. Sexually. I held out for the joke. It never materialized. "Are you serious?" She nodded while closely observing me. I blinked as a range of feelings, including amazement, bewilderment, and something deeper, rose in my chest. "Why?" she stated. "I don't want to feel like I'm missing out. Martin, you are the only person I have ever dated. And I don't want to feel restrained from doing the things I want to do after everything I've been through." My mouth parted, then shut again. Her face was unreadable as she sat there with her hands clasped. "A pass to the hall. With a coworker?" I asked bluntly. She gave a nod. "Indeed, I will never see him again because he is leaving the company." "This is the ideal chance." "Excellent." That word weighed heavily on my stomach. "You have always found him attractive." She let out a sigh. "Yes, something has always been there. But I never did anything about it. Up until today, I never gave it any thought." I felt the start of a headache and rubbed my temples. "You believe that this one time will do what? Give you a sense of completion?" "I'm not sure," she said. "I simply know that I don't want to live my life wondering what may have been. Additionally, I don't want to be angry with you for declining." I gave her a stern look. "So you'll be upset with me if I say no?" She paused. "I'm disappointed." There was no humor in my laughter. "That's a lot of money. I'm the bad guy because I forbid my wife from having an affair." She didn't answer. I continued. "So it proves, what if I disagree?" She let out a breath. "That you lack confidence." I crossed my arms and leaned back. "So I'm insecure now? This wouldn't be such a big deal if you weren't." I looked at her in disbelief. "You're saying that I have a problem because I won't allow you to sleep with someone else after more than 20 years of marriage?" She whispered. "I'm not saying you have a problem. I'm stating that this is significant to me. Additionally, I need your faith." I gave a headshake. "That isn't trustworthy. Coercion is what that is. You're requesting permission while punishing me for declining." There was silence between us. I wiped a palm across my face and groaned. "Thank you for telling me rather than doing it behind my back. But you're making it impossible for me to win. Either I'm the bad guy in my own marriage, or I agree." She cast her gaze downward. "I'm sorry you think that." That evening, we didn't say much more. The next morning, I woke up to find her already dressed and perched on the side of the bed. She gave me a little, dejected smile. "I came to a realization," she remarked. "I'm taking the decision away from you because it's unfair to put all of this on you." I felt a chill go through me. "What's that?" She took a swallow. "I have booked a hotel near the restaurant hosting his farewell party." My body froze. She added, "I'll stay there with him for the night. And when I return, I hope you'll be here." I tightened my jaw and sat up. "You decided on something." She gave a nod. "You won't even identify him for me?" She responded softly. "No, I know you. That's why. It will worsen if you worry about it and dwell on it." I laughed resentfully. "That's funny because you mentioned that I could ask you anything after it occurs." She looked at me as if she already knew I wouldn't ask and was expecting me to do so. My mind was racing with feelings that I was unable to fully comprehend as I gazed at her. At least she's being honest. I thought to myself. I might as well let it happen. Perhaps this was how she handled everything. However, there was a more irate, realistic side of me that wanted to assert myself. I want to assure her that this will not happen. And even if she did it? Okay. When the time came, I would handle the fallout. As I sat across from her, I heard her say it out. It was her intention. I've completed my request, not awaiting my approval. She had already made her decision. She worked with a nameless, faceless man and spent the night with him. He was a man I should never have come into contact with. And when she returned, she thought I would simply be here. As if nothing had occurred. As if I would simply accept it. I remained silent, didn't dispute, didn't engage in combat. I sat there, staring at a woman, forgetting who I was. That's when I realized, we were already divorced. The last farewell. She prepared herself like she would have on any other night. Had a shower, did her hair. She changed into one of her most elegant gowns. She had a stunning appearance. She reminded me of my wife. However, she was no longer. Not after this. She gave me one last chance as she waited in the doorway with the keys. She whispered, "I sincerely hope you'll still be here when I return." I didn't answer. Didn't give her a glance. Because she might see how much I wanted to plead with her to stay if I did. I detested her for causing me to feel that way. The door closed with a click. She vanished in an instant. Observing it take place, I promised myself that I would not follow her. That it would only become worse as you saw it happen. I had no interest in learning. However, I had to. She was throwing everything away for someone I had to see. So I waited. I had my hands balled into fists in my lap as I sat in my car across the street from the eatery. As they said their goodbyes and laughed, people started to trickle out in groups and pairs. Then I caught sight of her. She went outside, glanced around as if to see whether I was there, and then saw him. My stomach fell. I have no idea what I was anticipating. Could it be someone younger? Does anyone fit? Someone who at least explained it. However, no. He was bald, short, and obese. He appeared to be living off of cheap beer and takeout. Nevertheless, she approached him directly, took his hand, without hesitation, not guilty. They then headed for the hotel together. My knuckles went white from holding on to the driving wheel so tightly. My mouth became parched, and all of the feelings I had been anticipating suddenly came flooding back. Anger, sadness, humiliation, but above all, disgust. I didn't even know who she was. Unable to identify us. I hoped that she might have changed her mind. However, she didn't. She entered the hotel as if our marriage had never been important. Then I realized, my wife wasn't going anywhere. She had already left. A choice is made. How long I sat there is a mystery to me. I felt devoid, not upset, not depressed, just finished. I drove directly to the hardware store after I eventually composed myself. I got a lock for the bedroom door. I packed up her belongings as soon as I arrived home. Quite nicely, with caution. Not because I was angry, but because I had cleaned up the mess she had created. I took everything she had ever owned from our bedroom and threw it all in the spare room. I then took a notepad from the kitchen, wrote a brief but straightforward message, and placed it on top of her belongings. Seek alternative accommodations as soon as you can. For a time, I just stared at the words. After that, I left. I also didn't turn around. Severing the cord, I prepared for the next move throughout the course of the following several hours. I reached out to my friend who works as a divorce attorney. He didn't hold back. "Martin," he continued, "you can't save this. Are you aware of that?" I let out a slow breath. Yes, I got names from him. Lawyers, materials, and I had something akin to relief for the first time since this nightmare started. My phone then buzzed. Janet. I let the voicemail go. Then there was another call. And yet another. By the third message, there was a hint of terror in her voice. "Why don't you respond? We must speak. I'm afraid of you." Frightening her? I blocked her number. I didn't have to talk to her. She made all the decisions without consulting me. The conflict. I soon had to return home because I had no intention of staying out all night. Around 9 p.m., I pulled into the driveway, inhaled deeply, and entered. It was too quiet in the house. Halfway up the stairs, I heard her voice. "What's happening, Martin? Can we have a conversation?" I didn't look back, simply continued to walk. I eventually spoke at the entrance to my bedroom, which is now mine. "I don't want to talk about this tonight." I entered and shut the door after myself. I heard her pacing outside for a while. She then left me alone after realizing I wouldn't be returning. Staring at the ceiling, I lay in bed. I felt cowardly for excluding her. I regret not confronting her and expressing all my feelings of rage and disdain. However, I was unable to look at her. Not quite yet. The final straw. I got up on Monday morning, dressed for work, and went downstairs. I found Janet waiting for me. She appeared anxious. I am not at fault. Not embarrassed. Just not sure. As if she were trying things out. Can we talk about returning to normal? She inquired. It nearly made me chuckle. I remarked, over the past week, you have been speaking for us both. How about you go on? I then left through the door. I had an appointment with a divorce lawyer later that week. I had to live with her for the time being. Though, to get my thoughts straight, I took a lengthy drive. Upon my return, I spent a considerable amount of time sitting in the car and gazing at the house. I had no desire to enter. Not because I feared another altercation. I had moved on from that. But because I didn't want to talk to her at all. After a while, I made myself enter. At that point, I unintentionally stepped into a trap. The intervention. Janet's pals were anticipating my arrival. In addition to my mother-in-law, they rushed into the door before I could even close it. Martin, she's been through a lot. You can't imagine how it feels to confront something like she did. This was only an isolated incident. She at least informed you. She had the option to conceal it. She won't see him ever again. For what reason are you punishing her? And my own favorite, you're a complete asshole. Especially considering what you've been doing to her over the past few days. I smirked in disbelief as I stood there with my arms folded and listened. And when they eventually lost steam, I looked at Janet, and I saw her for what she truly was for the first time in my life. And I was fully aware of my next course of action. With my arms folded, I gazed at the group of people Janet had brought together to repair our marriage. Her companions, Mom, a fucking intervention. As if I had done something incorrectly. As if I were the issue. One of them reiterated, Martin, she's been through so much. You have to realize that. I breathed out slowly. I had gotten it. I had been there for her through it all. The hospital's late nights, the terror, the tension, and she had slept with another man to repay me. However, it seems like I was the bad guy since I refused to accept it. I glanced at Janet when they eventually stopped talking. Did you forget to invite anyone else? I asked in a composed tone. She parted her lips, then shut them again. I turned to face her pals. I think it's only fair that I sit down with your husbands and let them know exactly what kind of people you are. Since you all felt at ease verbally and socially humiliating me for having a perfectly normal reaction to my wife cheating on me. Quiet. Eyes flitted about. Expressions change. That quickly silenced them. I then gestured towards the door. Now leave. Not remorse, but regret. They went out one by one. There is a hint of huffing. Some people are awkwardly quiet. After giving me a dissatisfied look, Janet's mother followed them. Janet rubbed her temples and let out a sharp gasp when they were finally gone. I regret everything, she whispered. I gave a snort. Remorse is not regret. She looked directly into my eyes. Because of the repercussions, you regret it. Your life will never be the same again. Our marriage will never be the same. She winced, but she didn't protest. You regretted because you never gave me any real thought. She took a deep breath. If you have any questions, I'll answer them, no matter how disturbing, she replied after a pause. I felt nothing at all when I gazed at her. Just one, I replied. Why not him? Was he not superior to me? When you were with him, did you not think of me? To be honest, I don't give a damn about that. However, there was one thing I wanted to know. First of all, why someone else? Before responding, she closed her eyes for a moment. She whispered, I was afraid of the cancer. It completely rocked me. I thought I was running out of time. And it was tempting to get out of that tunnel. She breathed out slowly. This was just something for me after all these years of caring about family and being a wife and mother. A way out. And he was just someone who had been interested in me for a long time. She said after hesitating. He wouldn't say no. I knew. Additionally, he was the total antithesis of you. I sneered. Yes, without exaggeration. I then gave her a direct look. The woman would have to be a significant improvement over you if I were willing to jeopardize my marriage. Janet, people make mistakes. They don't make mistakes. The color left her face. Excellent. I noticed you. I watched her with my arms crossed and leaned back against the counter. I said, "I saw you." Janet blinked. "What?" "That evening." I explained. "I watched him and you leave the bar. I saw you head towards the hotel. Hand in hand." Her face went white. I went on. "You two looked too familiar. Tell me, was there something going on prior to all of this?" She gave a swift shake of her head. "It was only that one night, Martin. That's all." I took a quick breath. Who can tell if that is true or not? At that moment, she gave me a glance as if to see if I believed her. I didn't. "You simply dislike the repercussions. It's incredible that you don't respect me after all the years we've spent together," I remarked. She took a swallow. "If I stayed with you and tolerated this degree of disrespect, I would never be able to look in the mirror again." She started to speak, but I wasn't done yet. I said, "I hope we can part ways in a friendly manner. Later this week, I have an appointment with a lawyer." Her face hardened as she stood up straight. "I won't be leaving." I laughed without humor. "No, Janet." She interrupted me. "We will not be divorcing." I gave a headshake. She said, "I will give you all the time you need. Take whatever action you need to get over this. However, we shall overcome this." "No, we won't." "Yes, we will." "Janet, I will not attend marriage counseling." "Why not?" she yelled. "It might be useful." "Why would I seek therapy?" I fired back. I didn't require guidance from a therapist. I did not leave our marriage. I didn't turn on you. I told you the truth. I said icily, "This is on you, and I'm done." Her chest rose and fell as she gazed at me. She appeared genuinely desperate for the first time. I wasn't moved, though. The divorce documents. The next week, I served her with divorce papers. I gave her notice to leave along with them. My prenuptial asset was the house. She had no right to it. At first, she resisted me on it. She did, however, finally move in with her mother. It ought to have ended there. However, it wasn't. She continued to pass. "You look ugly," in desperation. Initially, we did it under the guise of checking in. "Do you need anything? Are you eating? How's work?" Then it moved. "What if we had an open relationship? Only on your side?" I laughed at that one. Then she gave it another go. "What if we had threesomes?" Horrible. In a desperate situation, each and every time, I shut her down. "Stop, Janet." "But, you must give us a call before visiting. You don't simply appear." She received the message at last. We wouldn't be around anymore. She did not receive it well. One evening, she threatened to drag this divorce out as long as possible. I gave a shrug. Take the necessary action. The worst aspect of everything. The worst thing about it all? Letting our daughter know. Settling her down. Focusing on her eyes. She watched in slow motion as the realization dawned on her. Then the question that comes without fail. Why? I took a deep breath. There was an affair with your mother. She gazed at me, asking, "What?" I gave a nod. It wasn't an error. I stated, it wasn't a coincidence. It was a decision. She swallowed, though her face contorted. "Can't you just try to work it out?" I let out a breath. "No, darling, I am unable to." I then posed a question to her. If we had switched roles, would she have given me the same chance? She didn't respond. She was not required to. Her face was already etched with the truth. Things had changed a month after the divorce was filed. The woman who boldly left our home that evening, anticipating my presence when she returned, was no longer Janet. She no longer smirked or exuded arrogance. No, she was desperate now. She felt afraid now, and it was stunning to observe. No story rewriting. Janet initially attempted to change the story. She spread her story, saying that I had overreacted, that this was an isolated incident, and that since she had been honest with me, it shouldn't be considered cheating. She even dared to claim that I was throwing away our marriage over a misunderstanding to a few others. A miscommunication. I felt as though I hadn't actually witnessed her entering that motel with another man. As if I were inventing it. However, what about Janet? She forgot that not everyone would support her without question. And a few of the individuals she confided in? They filled me in on everything. Thus, I took the logical course of action. I corrected the record. I explained everything that transpired. How she had requested authorization. How, in spite of my refusal, she carried it out. How she assumed I would simply take it. She wants sympathy. Rather, she felt contempt. Before long, she was left with nothing but stillness. Friends begin to vanish. The same friends of Janet's who attempted to surprise me in my own home started to distance themselves. They stopped answering her calls one by one, ceased asking her out, ceased supporting her, because despite their best efforts to protect her, they began to pose a question to themselves. What would happen if their husbands discovered what they had told me? And that anxiety? They were crushed by it. They even apologized to me in some cases. They were afraid of what I could do to their own marriages. Not because they cared about me. I didn't answer. My time was not worth it. Janet wasn't either. Now she was by herself. As she was entitled to be. The other woman's visit. I believed that everything had calmed down. I believed the worst was behind us. I was content until my phone rang one day. An unidentified number. I nearly disregarded it. However, I felt compelled to pick it up. Hey? I heard a woman's voice. Martin? I was unaware of it. Yes? She paused. Next. My name is Sarah Barton. John's spouse. Oh. The woman in question is the wife of Janet's affair partner. This was going to work out well. She threw everything away for this man. Sarah wasted no time. She stated, I must know the truth. I told her everything. Then, the scandal. The lodging facility. The manner in which Janet had organized everything. Sarah was silent for a while. Then she laughed bitterly. She remarked, I knew something was wrong. I simply had no idea it was this bad. I reclined. What did you hear him say? She acknowledged, that you were making a big deal out of nothing. That it never really happened. That Janet was the one pushing for it. And that it was just drinks. I gave a snort. Indeed, that was not the case. She gave a quick exhale. I believed so. She then posed an unexpected question to me. Do you think you could testify in my divorce case? Suddenly, everything was different. Damage to collateral. Sarah wasted no time. John's life was on fire in a matter of days. She made a divorce filing. Took their home. Used their savings. She even ensured that his employer learned of his brief fling at work. And you know what? He had been breaking business rules. It turned out. Thus, his ass was fired. Janet wasn't simply unfaithful to me. She had staked her whole marriage on a man who was now at the end of his rope. What about karma? It struck with force. Janet's final try. 2 months later. The last straw. I had completely moved on by then. Divorce proceedings were underway. Things were returning to normal in my life. And suddenly, Janet arrived at my home. She had a new appearance. Not sure, not arrogant. She appeared worn out, older, worn down, with her hands clasped and her eyes full of something I couldn't quite identify. She stood on the porch. She whispered, I just want to talk. I let out a sigh. Janet, I understand. She cut in. I am aware that it is over. I folded my arms and rested against the doorframe. So, what would you like? She paused. Then, at the very least, might we try to be friends? I chuckled. An actual, sincere laugh. Her face fell apart. In a whisper, she said, I loved you. I gave her a direct look. No, I said to Janet, you had self-love, and you believed that no matter what you did, I would always be here. She let a tear fall down her cheek. However, I felt nothing. No sympathy. Not depressed. Only relief. I shut the door in her face after that. And I didn't see her again after that. Final score. Janet 0, I 1. After several months, the divorce was finalized. Janet received nearly nothing. The home? Mine. How much money have you saved? Mine. Her standing? Destroyed. What's the best part? She had destroyed all of her relationships. Her pals deserted her. Her family was embarrassed by her. She had lost her network of support. And me? I got away with it. Get rid of her. Let the lies go. Get rid of the luggage. And I've never turned around. Not once. Part 4's conclusion. Next, we'll discuss the final chapter. Part 5. The fallout, the fresh start, and the last nail in Janet's coffin. Tell me when you're prepared. The divorce was final. They signed the documents. Janet was suddenly no longer a part of my life. No more calls at odd hours. No more pitiful attempts at peacemaking. No more emotional blackmail or guilt trips. Nothing but quiet. And it was flawless. The appearance of rock bottom. Janet's life completely collapsed. Not simply crumbled. Her pals had left. She seldom ever heard from her family. When she got divorced, she lost everything. And to finish it all, she had nowhere to go. Even her mother grew weary of Janet's self-pity. But she allowed her to stay for a while. I had heard rumors that she had moved into a little flat. There is only one bedroom. No savings. Barely making ends meet. What's the best part? She sacrificed everything for John. But they never got together. He disappeared when Sarah destroyed him during their divorce. Didn't defend Janet. Not even to see how she was doing. He simply moved on. And she? She had nothing left. Going ahead. I was free for the first time in years. It's time to stop being cautious. No more doubting my own value. I will no longer feel inadequate. I purchased a brand new truck. Began taking more trips. I even took up woodworking as a new pastime. I've always wanted to do this but have never had the time. What's the best part? I resumed dating. I initially believed it would be challenging. However, it wasn't. It turns out that women value men who are honest, devoted, and don't put up with bullshit. Janet never understood it. And now? I was with someone who genuinely appreciated me now. No one looked to me as a safety net. I wasn't someone who believed I would always be there. And I was pleased for the first time in a long time. The last bit of her coffin. I received an SMS from an unidentified number one evening. I nearly disregarded it. However, my curiosity overcame me. I took it open. I was filled with nausea. Janet sent it. She sent me a long, frantic message expressing how much she missed me. How she became aware of her error. How she wished for another opportunity. Even worse, she dared to say, "I know you still love me. We can fix this." All I did was look at my phone. No rage. Not depressed. Simply incredulity. After all, have we destroyed our marriage? Did she truly believe she could simply re-enter my life? I inhaled deeply. I then entered the only answer she was due. "Janet, the only thing I regret is ever believing you were worthy of my loyalty." I blocked her number after that. Permanently. A fresh start. I no longer feel hate when I look back. I have no regrets. I simply feel appreciative. I'm glad I caught her in her genuine self before I wasted any more time. I'm glad I regained control rather than pleading with her to stay. I'm glad I'm at last really free. Janet, too? Knowing that she wasted a good man for a one-night thrill will haunt her for the rest of her life. She'll never be able to win me back. I treated her in a way that she will never find in another person. And that? Her karma is that. Concluding remarks. If all of this has taught me anything, it's this. Do not plead with someone to stay. Let them leave if they don't think you're valuable. Because one day, they'll understand just what they've lost. By then, too, it will be far too late. I prevailed. And I will never turn around.